to our February 28, 2020.
Yay.
My name is Christian Debris, and this is Amy Hasbrook.
Yep,
And also Director of Turo Ivan not dead yet, and also joining us, Taylor Hyatt. Over there. Okay. Taylor Hyatt, who are our outreach coordinator and policy analyst. Toujours Vivant Not Dead Yet is a non-religious organization by and for people with disabilities and our allies. And we insist we are non-religious.
somewhere on the side of your screen.
Yeah. We believe that the choice to die is not free as long as old, ill, and disabled people don't have a free choice in where and how they live. And that must change. So, today's topics. The made amendment bill C7 removes safeguards and offers little in return. The second one is Portuguese Parliament approve euthanasia and assisted suicide. So, Amy Hasbrook will help us through those two subjects.
I will. My best, anyway. Okay, on February 24th, the Ministers of Justice, Health, and Disability Inclusion presented Bill C7 that would amend the medical assistance in dying, or MAID law.
C7 is just the half of C14.
Yeah.
That's your gag.
Yeah, that was my joke. To comply with the Truffaut decision, the bill removes the requirement that the person's death natural death has become reasonably foreseeable, thus expanding eligibility for assisted suicide and euthanasia far beyond people with terminal illness. Okay. However, the bill offers little to protect people whose life choices are limited by discrimination and barriers. The preamble acknowledges Canada's obligations under the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, including, quote, in respect to the right to life, unquote.
Okay, that's an improvement.
Yes. And yeah, that is acknowledging that they have obligations under the CRPD is an improvement.
We have a cat who wants to get
come
it.
in.
Sorry, a cat video again.
Come on. Okay. The proposed legislation maintains the focus on ending people's lives, improving the quality of She escaped earlier, so now she wanted it. As safeguards, quality of life measures act as barriers to the bill's stated goal of enabling the person to die. Requiring the applicant to have quality of life in place as a condition of medical assistance in dying eligibility might serve as an incentive to the person to seek out such services and to governments to provide them. And, of course, improved quality of life might eliminate the need for MAID altogether.
Sorry.
I'm afraid that, especially in rural areas, we're going to come back to the. We're going to come back to the tired idea that some people are just too expensive to keep around. Will the people who must confront this idea, legislators, be able to break out of their privilege and see it for what it is?
Good question. Okay. The good news is that the bill does not expand eligibility to mature minors, and it specifically excludes people whose only medical condition is a, quote, mental illness, unquote. But the exclusion...
There is a but.
Yeah.
Big
but. But that exclusion doesn't provide as much protection as it might appear. The bill doesn't address people with multiple conditions, including mental illness, people for whom abuse, barriers, and discrimination have caused isolation though they don't rise to their judgment about wanting to die, and people with related conditions like autism or brain injuries.
And so when you live in a nursing home who have some abuse on the way, you have a choice between dying and be tortured. Your choice. Sorry, Taylor.
Are we? That was the comment I changed. I actually don't have anything for this.
Okay, sorry. Bill C7 reduces the number of witness signatures on the application form from 2 to 1. Great. And it would allow personal care providers to witness the form. So that would make it easier for an abusive caregiver to pressure a person into filling out a MAID application, then sign off as the only witness to the document.
It will never happen.
Oh, no, that will never happen. Never. The new bill creates 2 separate systems of safeguards, depending on whether or not the person is near the end of life. However, it does not clarify when natural death is, quote, reasonably foreseeable. So the big issue, of course, in the Truchon case is when is natural death reasonably foreseeable? And the courts and doctors and everybody has been trying to decide what that means for the last 4 years. But this law didn't do anything to clarify that definition.
Nope, not at all.
It still uses the phrase reasonably foreseeable, but it doesn't clarify it at all. Okay, so for people whose death is reasonably foreseeable, the bill removes the 10-day waiting period. And remember that for people, everybody who's had MAID so far, their death was reasonably foreseeable, or at least it was deemed reasonably foreseeable. So these things apply essentially to everybody. So it removes the 10-day waiting period. It allows for a waiver of the requirement that the person be capable to consent when euthanasia is administered if, before losing capacity, they arrange for euthanasia to be provided on a specified day and the person does not demonstrate by words, sounds, or gestures refusal or resistance to its administration.
There's already deeply entrenched biases against nonverbal communication. So how can they ensure that they're judging correctly whether the gestures are voluntary? How can they ensure the presence of a reliable and impartial expert in the person's condition and in the person themselves, how they typically behave? And how will we know that in the case where these biases exist, the person's wishes won't just be ignored, like, to use an extreme example, the coffee incident?
Right, exactly. And in fact, there's a section in Bill C7 that talks about, just to be clear, involuntary words, movements, or gestures or sounds should not be counted as resistance. It's like,
so
what?
If the patient just pushed the arm of the doctor, it may be not resistant,
Yeah, it might not be resisting.
Yeah.
You must fight to resist.
Yeah. No means no. This section is a little confusing.
Except in this case.
Go ahead.
Oh, you had said no means no, except in this case.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So we are still looking into what the precise meaning of all this is, and it's very confusing.
Lawyers will have fun with that one.
Lawyers will make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So while the bill's authors don't say it in so many words, this section allows advance requests, or as the bill calls it, advance consent, for people whose death is reasonably foreseeable. And given the broad interpretation of been adopted since 2000, a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
For people whose death is not reasonably foreseeable,
Means newborn baby to anywhere 60 years old.
Yeah. The time between the initial assessment and euthanasia is increased to 90 days or 3 months, unless, of course, the medical practitioner shortens that period if they think the person might lose capacity. And in Quebec, 40% of the time, they eliminated the 10-day waiting period. So who knows? They might,
Eliminated that one
Yeah.
too. Easily. Easily. They just say, oh, maybe you
might lose capacity, so we're
yeah.
going to just waive this
Yes.
waiting period here.
24 hours, it's okay.
One of the two medical practitioners must, quote, have expertise in the condition that is causing the person's suffering, unquote. We note that it is the medical practitioner who decides if they have the required expertise. As well, the bill says nothing about people with multiple medical conditions or about what happens when the cause of the suffering isn't the condition that puts the person's life or health at risk. The bill expands the informed consent section by requiring that the person be informed of mental health and disability supports in addition to palliative care, which was already in the law. And they may be referred to consult for consultations with, quote, relevant professionals, unquote. The medical practitioner must also discuss options to relieve suffering with the person. Okay.
Information and consultation.
Yeah.
So I inform you that you will have a 10-minute consultation.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
As we've seen, this does not guarantee that service will be provided or that it will meet the person's needs.
Not at all.
Yeah. In a new section called Advanced Consent, Self-Administration, the bill would allow a person to be euthanized if they've lost the capacity to consent after attempting assisted suicide. So this must have happened once or more, and they wanted to make sure to include those 1 or 2 people. The bill adds a reporting obligation on medical practitioners who do initial assessments before a written request for MAID is completed. So what they found is a lot of people are sort of having doctors or nurse practitioners are having a conversation with somebody about assisted suicide or euthanasia and basically doing an assessment before the written request is even put out there. So they want those people to report what they're doing, which is a good idea.
This obligation will not have any truth at all.
Right. It has as much enforcement as the current obligations, which is 0. It also obliges pharmacy technicians who dispense MAID drugs to report these activities. So now it's the pharmacist, and they're adding pharmacy technicians.
So it will be easier to get some information about the real number of euthanasia. But
maybe.
But there is always a but to take.
Right, exactly.
If pharmacists do 100% of their job, which is not always the case.
Right. Also, these amendments to the monitoring system don't do anything to verify that medical practitioners are filling out the required reports or to deal with errors or incomplete information.
No. There will not be any incomplete or not filled at all.
Right.
Anyway, you will not have any information about it.
Okay. So finally, from the oh, and by the way department, along with the Bill C7 announcement, the government mentioned in passing the 13,000 people have been euthanized since 2016.
By the way.
13,000 people have been euthanized since
Just
2016.
by the way, you know, don't
Stop interrupting me.
And-
13, 40.
Accounts for nearly 2% of deaths in Canada.
Oh.
Disability rights.
And that's what we know of
That's what we know of. Disability rights activists.
with reports being.
Disability rights activists must ask themselves if Bill C7 creates what the Supreme Court called for in the Carter case. That is a carefully designed system that imposes stringent limits that are scrupulously monitored and enforced.
Yes, scrupulously
Monitored
monitor and enforced. I never saw any enforcement, and
Right.
scrupulously, no.
Not so much. Okay, the second topic. Portuguese Parliament approves euthanasia and assisted suicide, and the law that they are considering, which isn't finalized yet, is a lot stronger than ours.
Yeah.
On February 20th, the Parliament of Portugal approved 5 bills allowing euthanasia and assisted suicide for people with terminal illnesses. Only Portuguese citizens or legal residents would be obliged to end their lives under these statutes.
Okay, it's look like
Eligible. I'm
eligible.
sorry. I
Eligible.
said obliged,
Not
but I meant
obliged,
eligible. Woof.
Obliged will be only in future in Canada. You're just thinking about Canada, that
yeah.
will happen soon.
Yeah,
People
exactly.
will be obliged to do it. That will be the next step because all other steps was taken.
Oh my. Right side ready to die. Portuguese President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa could still veto the law, but his veto could be overridden by a second parliamentary vote. The president could also ask the country's constitutional court to review the legislation. It may conflict with Portugal's constitution, which states that human life is sacrosanct.
Anyway, that's how the Portugal work. It's okay.
Right.
There are a way to do.
If the bills pass, 2 doctors and a psychiatrist,
Oh.
doctors and a psychiatrist,
And a psychotherapist. Oh,
would
better than us. Yeah.
would need to approve the person's euthanasia request. The application would then be examined by a verification and evaluation committee.
Oh, before the person
Dies,
killed.
yeah.
Okay.
Which could approve or reject the application.
Oh,
The
better.
process could also be postponed if it is legally challenged.
oh, they have the right to challenge there.
Right.
Oh,
Or if the person loses consciousness.
they have the right to
Okay.
challenge. We don't have that right. Yeah.
I've heard similar proposals for a Canadian verification committee, which would include, for example, experts in the law and in the person's condition. Would that cause the charter violation?
Actually, I was thinking about that between our webcasts, and I don't think so, because charter violations are an issue of discrimination. And so if one group is singled out for differential treatment, that's where the violation comes in.
Okay.
So I don't think it would be a problem, but it would ultimately be up to lawyers, of which I used to be one, but not anymore. So they would have to decide. Okay. Oversight will be provided by the General Inspectorate for Health, whose mission is to audit, to inspect, to supervise, and to conduct disciplinary actions within the health sector for ensuring compliance with the law, which it sounds like it's about the same as Health Canada. Medical practitioners have the right to refuse to participate for moral reasons.
Oh, here we doesn't have that right.
No, it's in the law, but in Ontario, for example, they have just decided they're not going to, allow that.
Yes, and if you don't allow that, if you allow that, you have to refer somebody who will do that. So it's exactly the same.
Yep.
Somebody else that you point.
For more information about the subjects that we discuss here, you can visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/toujours vivant, not dead yet, all one word. You can visit our website at tvndy.ca. You can email us at info@tv-ndy.ca, or you can follow us on Twitter @TVNDY. Thanks to Christian for helping out.
But anyway, Portuguese seems to be more intelligent than Canadian, as far as I could.
The law, yeah. And thanks to Taylor as well. And we will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.